All right, welcome everyone. My name is Troy Jenkins with ACHS. I'm excited that everyone's here today. We have a really exciting webinar for you all today. And if you've joined today, you're probably already well aware of what we're going to be talking about and excited to learn more. While we wait on everyone to come in, I have a few messages to pass along, but we always ask everybody to let us know where they're joining from. Put that in the chat if you will, and maybe even something about you. What's your favorite wellness practice that you're into right now? Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. When you look at the chat window, you should see the opportunity to chat with either everyone or hosts and panelists. We'd love to see, what your questions are along through the process today. So just make sure that you're set to everyone so that we can see the question and the answer, and we'll do our best along the way to answer those questions. We are going to have lines muted today because we're recording this to send out later on, and that just helps with the sound quality. So, but if we do want to hear what your questions are, so feel free to add those in as along the way. And like I said, we will do our best to field those and get them answered. If we're not able to answer anything today, we will be sending out the recording, and we'll save the chat transcript as well and reach back out to you with any information that we may have missed. So. Great to see everyone joining today. I think we can go ahead and get started. Catherine, if we can move on to the next slide. So we have a real treat today. So one of the things I love most about ACHS is that we're always looking for how our programs can progress after graduation. So what can we prepare our students for that can add to their credentials and get them more prepared in their field of study. So, and that a lot of times that involves partnering with other organizations and making sure that our programs are set up in a way that they can work together well. So we have with us Dr. Janet Ludwig, our Dean of Doctoral Studies, and Dr. Patricia Kaufman, who have worked tirelessly to find these opportunities and work alongside such organizations like the American Nutrition Association to put this together. Our special guest today is Amy Smith from the ANA, Senior Director of Nutrition Programs and Advocacy. We'll have a more proper introduction here in a moment from Janet to kind of lead into the information for today. So, Janet, I will turn it over to you to take us through the next couple of slides.
Thank you, Troy. It's a pleasure to be here and to welcome the esteemed guest here and all of our students and other people interested in the program. First, we want to go through the ACHS mission and vision, because this is where we're all working together for the advancement of evidence-based integrative health and wellness education through experiential online learning and sustainable practices. And our vision is basically the same, as well as to make it accessible to global communities, promoting sustainable and healthy futures for all. We all know what's going on in this world today. Next slide, please. And we've been around for basically over 45 years. We are an accredited university. It was established in 1978, actually in New Zealand by Doreen Peterson. We specialize in online education, distance education, and we're accredited for the DEAC. We are also a certified B Corporation, which is sustainable, using sustainable techniques and furthering improving the environment in the world. And of course, we are here because we have many opportunities for learning, certificates, diplomas, degrees, all the way up to the doctorate level, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And we do have even micro-credentials that some of those can count for CEU units and going on further with your career, which is what's so important relative to helping the world. Next slide, please. We all know what the Doctor of Science in Integrative Health is. Basically, it goes beyond basic health and nutrition by incorporating digestive health and root causes. We go through environmental impacts, genomics, physiological, and so important public policy for integrative health and functional nutrition. And this is what Amy Smith is going to be helping us with, is at all levels of this. So let's go on to the next slide. on that past slide, it's a 60 credit program, and we are fortunate to have a whole array of courses that you can take. But now let's get to the most important part of this, and I want to introduce Amy Smith. She has a master's degree in sciences. She herself is a clinical nutrition and nutritionist. Importantly, she is the senior director of the nutrition programs and advocacy through the American Nutrition Association, a national organization. So I welcome you, Amy. I'd like to turn the program over to you to walk us through the procedures.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ludwig. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Let me get my screen going and we'll get started. All right, so we are here today to talk about the CNS pathway, specifically for the doctoral program at ACHS, so the Doctor of Science in Integrative Health. And we're just going to really talk about the Certified Nutrition Specialist pathway today. I'm hoping to answer any questions that you may have, and please feel free to put them in the chat as we go along. So we're going to really talk about 4 things today. We're going to talk about the American Nutrition Association so that you're all familiar with our organization. We're going to talk about the benefits of the CNS, the pathway to becoming a CNS, and then a little bit about advocacy and licensure, which gets to be, a little bit really deep into the subject, but I want to just give you an overview so that everyone kind of has a sense of what that looks like. So at the ANA, we believe in the power of nutrition. The American Nutrition Association has been around since 1959. We were previously called the American College of Nutrition, and most recently in about 2019 changed the name of the organization. But we believe, our values are pretty, strong in the sense of nutrition being a science. We believe that nutrition is medicine. We believe it is an ecosystem. We believe it is healthcare. We believe it is very personal. And of course, that nutrition is for everyone. So the ANA is actually made up of 3 organizations. And this is really important to understand, especially if you are familiar with the registered dietitians and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, because that organization is the most similar to us in structure and also the one that we are aligned with when we're looking for licensure in different states. So this structure was made on purpose to kind of mirror what they use, so that when we're going to different states to fight for licensure in a state, we have a similar structure. So the American Nutrition Association is our umbrella membership organization. It oversees all of the different education, continuing education, and oversees the 2 organizations that are beneath it. So we have the Board for Certification of Nutrition Specialists. This is our actual certification arm. So this is who creates and administrates the Certified Nutrition Specialist certification. And then we have ACNPE, which is the Accreditation Council for Nutrition Professional Education. And the ACNPE accredits degree programs and supervised practice experience programs to align with their standards. So we have the 3 different organizations. When we're talking about the ANA, we really focus on 4 different things. So we focus on education, and that's mostly of healthcare practitioners. So we have a continuing education content membership, which is for our certified nutrition specialists. We have our ANA trainings, which is focused on healthcare providers. So we have a ketogenic training, we have a nutrigenomic training, and we have our integrating nutrition into practice, which is a training that was created for other healthcare practitioners, not nutritionists necessarily, who have nutrition in their scope of practice, but don't necessarily have the training to use it. So, medical doctors, DOs, nurse practitioners, physicians associates. So folks who have that, connection with patients, but don't necessarily maybe have the nutrition training that they need to do to practice nutrition. We do offer some public education. We've just kind of started dipping our toe in the sand there. So we do have a public-facing training program called Getting Started with Personalized Nutrition that is meant for a consumer or for the public. We offer 4 certifications. The CNS, or the Certified Nutrition Specialist, is our gold standard, our flagship certification. It is the highest certification that you can earn in personalized nutrition in the United States. We also have a CKNS, which is our Certified Ketogenic Nutrition Specialist. We have the CNGS, which is our Certified Nutrigenomic Specialist, and our CPNP, which is our Certified Personalized Nutrition Practitioner. Those bottom three are all related to those trainings I just spoke about. So you take a training through the ANA, and then you can earn a certification by taking a board exam. Third, we focus on advocacy. So it is our belief that all nutrition professionals should be able to practice to their level of training and expertise. We believe there's plenty of room at the table and plenty of folks that need our help. So when we're advocating at the state or federal level, we're always keeping that in mind. So we always want to make sure that our practitioners have the ability to practice medical nutrition therapy, but we also want other folks to be able to practice what their training allows as well. So this includes health coaches and NDs and all the folks that are needed to kind of take care of everyone. So there's room for everyone at that table. And then finally, we work on connection. So this is the connection of our practitioners. This is offering candidate support. Similar, this webinar would be one of those things. And then we have some networking and events. We just have started a new regional symposium series this year and going into next year. So those are great opportunities to meet other folks in person. So we are meeting in San Diego in October, and then we have some symposiums scheduled for next year. And Brittany will put a link in the chat there on our symposium so that you can check those out. So that's a great opportunity to meet other folks, other nutrition or healthcare, integrative healthcare practitioners in person. I mentioned the continuing education content membership. We do have student pricing on this. So if you are, enrolled in a degree program or working on your hours, like in an internship, you can absolutely take advantage of that student pricing. We have over 200 webinars in there right now. We offer 3 to 5 new webinars a month. We have clinical reference sheets in there. We have access to our journal, which is the Journal of the American Nutrition Association. You get member only pricing for our symposium, our virtual symposiums, and our trainings. And like I said, there's great access in there for other networking events. So let's talk about the CNS. So the Certified Nutrition Specialist, what is it? It's a certification. So it's not a license. I think there's sometimes some confusion about what is the difference between a certification and a license. Usually licensure is through your state and through the governmental agency in a state. The CNS is a certification. So it signifies that an individual possesses the knowledge and skills required to perform a set of competencies. In this case, personalized nutrition and medical nutrition therapy. It sets the standard for personalized nutrition. So the CNS is the highest standard of personalized nutrition in the United States. And it focuses on the 3 E's: education, experience, and examination. And that's pretty common among certifications. Usually you have to have some sort of education. You might have to have an exam, and then the experience that follows that. The CNS is accredited by the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, or NCCA. And this just shows that we have met, the criteria set forth by that credentialing program, and they define the standards of certification. It's kind of the certification of certifications. It does show credibility with regulatory bodies. It is a trusted third-party verification, and it demonstrates that we have psychometric validity on our examination. And so this is, really important for us, especially when we're advocating for licensure, state licensure abilities for our CNSs. So there's lots of different career paths you can take as a CNS. You can go into private practice, and we used to see a lot of most of the CNSs, I would say up till about 5 or 8 years ago, would just go directly into private practice. The credential's fairly new, so we hadn't, really the word of the CNS hadn't been spread that far. So going into private practice was kind of the easiest thing. We are starting to see a shift in that. Most recently, we're seeing a lot more folks going into integrative clinics and functional clinics, and then places where we used to not necessarily, work. So, registered dietitians are usually in the hospital system or working at things like a WIC clinic or a Head Start. But we're seeing a lot more CNSs moving into that space. There's also opportunity for writing and blogging and podcasting. I know a lot of CNSs who are now doing, marketing for companies, and they're using their nutrition education and their certification and doing that through marketing and education. There's definitely room for teaching, both in academia and in research. There are lots of opportunities on licensing boards. So every state that we have the ability to be licensed in, they have to have a CNS that serves on that board. There's a lot of, a lot more nonprofits in the nutrition space, especially recently. So there's some room there. We have CNSs that are working in research and at supplement companies, both in research and in sales. A lot of folks going into community nutrition. So this might be, doing programs at the Senior Citizen Center or at the farmers market, doing a lot more culinary nutrition. And then a lot of folks are now doing group programs along with one-on-one or instead of one-on-one care. So the CNS pathway requires the 3 E's, the education, exam, and experience. We're going to go into all of these in super detail, but just kind of at the high level, you have to meet a degree requirement and some coursework requirements, and that's to take the CNS exam. The exam itself is 200 multiple choice questions. You get 4 hours to take it, and we offer it twice a year. Right now, we offer it in every June and December. Then the other part of this is the experience, the supervised practice experience. So to get your CNS, you have to have 1,000 hours of supervised practice experience, and that has to be done with a BCNS approved supervisor. So let's break all these down a little bit more. So for the first T, education, we've got that degree requirement. So you have to have a master's of science or a doctoral degree in the field of nutrition or integrative health. So if you are signed up for the doctorate program or the master's program at ACHS, you're already meeting this degree requirement. We do also allow doctoral degrees in other healthcare fields, so nursing, pharmacists, things like that. Those degrees are also allowed. Then you have to meet the coursework requirements. So this is separate than that degree, but most of the time we can fit that into the degree program, depending on what degree you're working towards. So the coursework has to be from a regionally or institutionally accredited institution, and we are looking for 36 semester credit hours of relevant coursework. So we're going to go through each of these in detail. So these courses that I've laid out are specific to the Doctorate of Science in Integrative Health program at ACHS. But that doesn't, if you're from a different program or if you are just, still looking at the program, there's other courses that can fit these. I'm just using those as an example. So we require 12 credits of graduate level nutrition. This is the only requirement that has to be graduate level. So you're having to take this in the master's program or through the doctorate program. So the courses that I'm using as an example here are the Global Health and Nutrition Policy course, the Environmental Nutrition, which is Health Implications course, and Inflammation, Immunity, and Nutrition. So these are each 4 credit classes. So the 3 of them together would meet the 12 credit requirement for that. The next requirement is biochemistry. So you have to have 6 credits of biochemistry. This can be graduate level or undergraduate level. And it has to be biochemistry. It can't be inorganic chemistry or organic chemistry. It can't be any of those other biologies. It has to be biochemistry. So the 2 courses that you can take at ACHS that fit this very easily are your micro and macronutrient courses. Each of those are worth 3 credits. So, so those are easily filled with those 2 courses. You may also have biochemistry from your undergrad, which is absolutely fine as well. It just has to definitely be biochemistry and not another branch of chemistry. We require 3 credits of anatomy and physiology. This again can be graduate or undergraduate. The GI process in health and disease course does meet this requirement. Chances are too that if you're coming in with an undergrad degree, you already have anatomy and physiology from your undergrad, which is absolutely fine as well. But it has to be, fit into that anatomy and physiology category. We require 12 credits of other clinical and life sciences. So this could be extra nutrition courses, or it can just be other clinical courses that you've taken. Again, it could be graduate or undergraduate. So for example, the detoxification course, the hormones and nutrition, neuroscience and nutrition, all of these could either go in the nutrition category or they could go in this clinical science course. So it's very easy to fill this with any extra courses that you've taken and any extra science courses. So this is where your organic chemistry could go or your biology. They could fit into this category. And again, they could be graduate or undergraduate. And then the last requirement is behavioral science. So we require 3 credits. Again, it can be graduate or undergraduate. So any kind of the wellness coaching, health promotion, and behavior change. If you have any kind of motivational interviewing course, intro to psychology, intro to sociology, any of those from your undergrad would also count in this category. Most folks have an intro to psychology that they took in their undergrad studies. So you could easily put that here. So you can apply for the exam once you have finished both education requirements. So you have to have graduated and have your degree, and you also have to have the 36 hours of what we just covered in order to take the exam. When you apply for the exam, you will have to submit your official transcripts for any coursework that you're using on the that you're accounting for those requirements. We do have a coursework form that has to be filled out. We do require 2 letters of recommendation, and those are going to be emailed straight from your supervisor or your professor to us. They do need to be professional, come from a professional relationship, so we can't have letters of recommendation from clients or family members or friends. So they need to come from somebody in a professional capacity, but any kind of supervisor or professor or faculty member at the school could easily do that. And then we're looking for a resume, just very basic resume. And you're going to upload that with your coursework form. There is a $150 application fee. Once you're approved, there is a $400 exam fee. And then you pay an $83 fee to the actual test center to take the exam. We do require applications to be completed about 60 days before the exam. So our next exam period is in December. So the applications are due in October. And we're doing that mostly so that we have plenty of time to make sure we have all of your documents and things in. So once you've graduated, you can then move into the process of taking the exam. Amy's asking if the Hunting University of Health Sciences teach out students doctoral program. How would my doctoral courses fit? Amy, why don't we have an email that we're going to share with you at the end. If you want to reach out, we can look. Yeah, the Huntington courses should still fit into the different categories.
Right. I think Huntington School was approved too, yes. So those should work. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that was for the graduate, but yes, the doctoral classes should fit too.
You should have no problems. Yeah, Amy, so just reach out to us and we can help you get that together. Danielle, the pass rate is about 72%. And you have to usually get about a 70 to pass the exam. It is a different rolling cut score, so it is different with every exam, but it's about a 70% is pass. We have about a 72% pass rate. Can your student advisor write a letter of recommendation? Sure. Yeah, that's a professional relationship that we would accept. Is there a time requirement? Oh, great question, Crystal. So there is no requirement or no time restriction on your courses. So if you took a course from 5 or 10 years ago, we can still absolutely accept it. We just will need a transcript for that course. And Rachel, same thing with you. If you want to reach out to us, we can look for sure at your courses and see if you're meeting those requirements. So that's the exam piece. So, the exam itself is very clinical. We do have folks, kind of asking about how to prep for it. There is a link that Brittany can share with everyone that has some prep materials and prep courses on there. It is very much a clinical exam. So we do suggest that you have some of your supervised practice experience done before taking the exam, because it is not didactic. We're looking for clinical experience to answer the questions. There are some example questions as well on the website. And it is written by CNSs. So that's, another question that we get sometimes: who creates the exam? So we do have an exam development council who creates the exam and creates new questions. And then we work with Prometric Testing Center to administer it. It is taken at a test center. There are test centers all over the United States. We don't very often have issues with people getting a test center in their area or within an hour or two of their area to take the exam. And there's a 5-day period of which you can take it. So for example, the next exam is December 13th through the 17th. So you can sign up for 1 day within that time period, so that if you need to take it on the weekend or something like that, if you have restrictions, you can meet those. It takes about 6 weeks to get the results. So if you take the exam in December, you're usually going to get your results in January. If you take the exam in June, you're going to get them usually in July. All right. Let me know if you have other questions about the exam, if you think of anything else. So the next piece is going to be the supervised practice experience. And this is usually the piece that is the most, I don't want to say overwhelming, but often confusing. People often have a lot of questions about it. So, we're looking for 1,000 hours of supervised practice experience. These are going to be split into 3 different categories. Category A is going to be personalized nutrition assessment and interpretation, and you have to have at least 200 hours in that category. Category B is going to be personalized nutrition, intervention, education, counseling, and ongoing care. Again, a 200-hour minimum. And category C, which is going to be personalized nutrition monitoring and evaluation. Again, a 200-hour minimum there. So between the 3 categories, you're going to have at least 600 hours. The other 400 hours can be in any of those categories, and it can also be time that you spend with your supervisor. So it is the expectation that you'll go over every case with your supervisor. So you're going to be meeting with them often in going over your protocols and the things that you've created. So that time also counts. You need to be you need to be tracking hours with our specific tool, our specific tracker, which Brittany will share a link to. We've got a couple tutorials that can help you with filling that out. Your supervisor should be familiar with it, but you want to make sure you're tracking from the very beginning with that tracker. And you want to make sure that you're working with an approved supervisor from the beginning. So you cannot start collecting those hours until you have an approved supervisor. We do have a list of approved supervisors available. If you need that, let us know. Dr. Kaufman is also an approved supervisor, so she can help answer any questions. But there, we can provide a list, which can be state dependent. And we'll talk about that when we get to the advocacy piece. So the goal of the supervised practice experience is to meet the SB competencies, which we've laid out as being personalized nutrition and medical nutrition therapy based. It is meant to be flexible to meet your career goals, but most importantly, it is created to meet state licensing laws. So the tracker that you're using to complete your hours was created based on the state that is the hardest to get licensed in currently, which happens to be North Carolina. So they will accept our tracker, but we made that tracker specifically the way that they make their tracker so that you can, get licensed there with no problems. So that, currently is is what it's based on. As far as timing, you can start earning your hours once you're matriculated or enrolled in your degree program. So I saw Danielle asked about if you're in your master's degree, can you start your supervised hours now? Yes, you can, as long as you're enrolled in your degree program. Now, when I say that, people are like, oh, I need to get started, right? Not necessarily, because you want to make sure you have your basic nutrition foundational courses done, because you're going to be seeing clients. So you need to be able to know how to help the clients. So you want to make sure that you're not starting your hours before you're ready. There is an opportunity to do some indirect hours or some shadowing. That's what you're going to want to start with if you haven't finished those foundational nutrition courses. I know that some supervisors will not take on new candidates until they are in their second to last or last semester, because they feel more confident they have finished those basic nutrition courses. And also I just tell people sometimes, getting a degree is hard enough that sometimes adding the supervised practice experience on top of that can be very stressful. So I think you really need to evaluate, what you can take on, especially if you're working a job and getting your degree, a lot of that, can restrict how much time you have. So don't feel like you have to start your hours now. You can finish them after you graduate. And you can finish them up to 5 years after you pass the exam. So that's the only time restriction, is that once you pass that exam, you have 5 years to finish the hours. If you finish your hours first and then take the exam, that's absolutely fine. In fact, that's what I would suggest, because you're going to have more experience and probably do better on the exam. But there is no time restriction the opposite way. Just that if you pass the exam, you need to finish your hours within 5 years. And you can use multiple venues and supervisors. You don't have to get all 1,000 hours with the same supervisor. You can definitely, based on what your needs are and what you're looking for out of a supervisor, you can definitely use multiple ones. So I'm going to get into the weeds about the hours a little bit. Like I said, I don't want this to be overwhelming. So just kind of, take this as an overview. And then if you have specific questions, we can definitely answer them. So there's two different types of hours. There's direct experience and indirect experience. Direct experience is when you are working with a client or with a group of clients in person. You are the one who is caring for them. You are being their clinician. You are doing direct care for them. We require at least 750 hours of direct hours. So the other 250 hours can be indirect, but you don't have to have indirect hours if it doesn't work out for you. The direct hours are going to be, examples might be counseling individuals and groups, doing activities that are related directly to that care. So if you're doing charting notes, if you're going over intake paperwork, you're creating a treatment plan, you're talking to their other care team, all of those things, all those activities that you do related to that client are going to count for hours. Any kind of participation in community education, including the development and delivery of education to a specific population, counts for hours. So this would be like you going to the Senior Citizen Center and doing a presentation on hypertension, or doing something at your gym, for example, on protein intake. You're creating an education program for a certain group of folks. And then anytime you spend with your supervisor is going to count for hours. So this might be a one-on-one setting. I know some supervisors do some like group activities. Anytime that you're with your supervisor, that's going to be a direct experience. And I see your questions about hours. I'm going to answer those at the end, okay? Just in case I give you the answer before we finish here. The other type of hours is indirect experience. So you can have up to 250 hours of indirect experience, but they are not required. I do usually suggest to folks that have never worked in a clinical setting before, or never worked with a person, in that kind of patient-client capacity, that you probably want to start with some indirect hours, because this is going to allow you to do some shadowing. It's going to allow you to watch your supervisor do the work. It's going to allow you to do some case studies and start kind of learning how to put those treatment plans together. But this is essentially you not doing the direct care. You're watching the direct care. Like I said, it might be through case studies. It could be through role playing. It's that practice piece or that watching of somebody else doing the actual care. And this is a great place to start. So if you haven't finished those foundational nutrition courses and you're not quite ready to work with clients, these indirect hours are a really great place to start, to kind of start seeing how it works. This is how you create a SOAP note. This is how you look at intake forms, that sort of thing. So what does not count for hours? So we have several things that don't. Research that is not related to a client does not count for hours. So I'm talking about research for the sake of researching. It might be a great way to study for the exam, but it doesn't count unless it's directly related to a client you're working with. So if you're working with a client that has Hashimoto's and you're doing research about Hashimoto's to understand it better, absolutely that counts. But if you're just studying Hashimoto's because you're interested in it, it doesn't count unless it's related to a client. Research around a client's medications, around their health history, all of that still counts because it's still direct care of that client. Okay. Writing any kind of books, articles, or blogs does not count for SPE. Teaching classes in an academic program. So this is not the same as that community education I was talking about. This is an actual teaching of an academic course that would not count for hours. Developing condition-based training programs and treatment protocols that are not related to a current client. So again, maybe you really want to work with folks with Hashimoto's, so you create a Hashimoto's training, or a course, and that might be a fantastic way to get clients, and again, to study for the exam. But if you're not relating it to your current clients, it won't count for hours. Watching or presenting any kind of educational lectures, videos, webinars for mass audience. So I always get the question, what does that mean, mass audience? So if you are doing a YouTube video, a Facebook Live, an Instagram Live, and you're just talking to folks, again, that might be a great way to get clients, but it doesn't count for hours because you're just talking to mass audience. You're not connecting with them. They are not your client in that setting. Now, if you're doing a presentation, again, at the Senior Citizen Center or the local gym, and you're connecting with those folks and you're talking to them and you're answering their questions, in that moment, they are your client, and that would count for hours. So we're, the difference being there that you're making a connection and they are your client at that time, okay? So let's talk about the category A, B, and C. So we have the direct hours and the indirect hours. Now there's this other further breakdown, A, B, and C. So category A, think of A as assessment. So this is all the things that you're doing to assess and do that initial intake with the client. So this is the first session that you're meeting with them. So you're going to probably look at their intake forms. You're probably going to do some research on their medications and their health history. You're going to spend some time, reviewing everything before you meet with them. You're obviously going to meet with them. So sometimes that could be an hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours, depending on, what your setup is. So it's anything that has to do with that initial assessment. Okay. Category B is going to be intervention, education, and counseling. So this is anything that you're doing after you've assessed them. You're creating their treatment plan. You're making them a handout about stress or sleep, and maybe you're doing a food prep video, or you're gonna show them how you're gonna take them on a grocery store tour or do a pantry clean out. Any of those little like education things you're doing, and their actual protocol, their actual medical nutrition therapy treatment plan is going to be category B. So you've met with them, now you're creating their plan. That's category B. And then category C is going to be the follow-up. So you meet with them, you give them your, the treatment plan you've created for them, you talk through it, they come back in 2 weeks, and you adjust it based on what they're telling you and any kind of behavior change that you need to work on. Those follow-ups are going to be category C. I always have folks that say, hey, what about if they bring me new lab work to category, to their follow-up? Is that still category C? It could most definitely be category A if you're doing a new assessment piece. What I usually suggest is looking at where you need hours and just count it there. Most folks have a harder time getting category C hours because it's hard to get people to follow up several times. So I would still count them in category C, but you can evaluate, talk to your supervisor. There are some things that could go in more than one category, and you're just going to make your, a best guess or make a decision on where they would go. So I see some folks, asking about the supervisor. So we have a list of supervisors. We're going to provide an email address that you can reach out to at the end. If you're currently working with somebody and you think, oh, maybe they could be my supervisor, maybe they could be, right? So we have the list of people who are already approved. Then you can have somebody approved. There are a few requirements that they have to meet. So they have to have at least a master's degree or higher in nutrition, or they can have a doctoral degree. If they are an MD or an ND or a nurse practitioner, they can most definitely be your supervisor, but they have to have 75 CEs of nutrition education in the last 5 years. So they have to prove, they have to send proof of that to us. If they are a CNS or an RD that has at least a master's degree, they usually qualify fairly easy, but they have to have 3 years of clinical experience. So there is a link, Brittany already put it in the chat, that has the rules around becoming a supervisor. The biggest, most important thing is do not start working with someone until they're approved, because if you don't get them approved, the hours won't count. Okay. Mackenzie had a great question. Does it need to be completed in person? Actually, most of our supervisors do virtual supervision, so it doesn't have to be done in person. It really depends on what you're looking for. So if you're already working in a place where maybe somebody can supervise you, that's great. If you go with somebody on the list, chances are it's going to be virtual, and that's absolutely fine. Can you start logging your hours? So, okay, Danielle, great question. You have to have an established supervisor before you can start tracking your hours, okay? They're going to send us a form. If they're already approved, they're going to send us an addendum telling us that you're working together. If they're not approved, they're going to send their application. We will approve them. Then you can start earning your hours. So make sure you're earning them under an approved supervisor, and you're using the tracker that Brittany put a link to in the chat. So, that's finding a supervisor. if you, like I said, if you don't have one in mind, let us know. The list is pretty extensive, so it usually is not difficult to find someone. What I usually tell folks is that you want to do a little bit of kind of reflection before you decide on who you want to supervise, because there's a lot of things that are going to play into who you choose. So you're going to want to think about how much time you have. So some folks, are working a full-time job, and so they can't put 40 hours a week in. Some of them, some folks are still going to school. So you want to think about how much time you can put in. You do want to know that all supervisors do charge some sort of fee. So those range pretty extensively. So we have some supervisors who do like a la carte supervision, where you just meet with them once every 2 weeks, and you go through your cases. And then we have programs that offer kind of all the bells and whistles, and they have, business building tools, and they have exam prep. They have all these things. Those are going to come with a higher price tag. So make sure that you're, kind of reflecting on how much money you have to spend, how much time you have to spend. And then again, think about what are you looking to get out of it? Are you wanting to work with somebody in a certain niche, or are you just wanting to get them done as quickly as possible? Is exam prep an important part for you? So you want to make sure that you're thinking through all of those things. The other thing that is super important to recognize is that if you are in a state that requires someone to be licensed to practice medical nutrition therapy, you will have to work with a supervisor who's licensed in that state. It does not mean that the supervisor has to live in the state, but they have to be licensed in the state if the state requires a license. So we're going to talk about those states in a minute, but that's something to think about. So if you're in a state, when we get to the list that's on the list that requires a license, you're going to want to make sure that your supervisor is licensed in that state. Again, I can't stress enough, please make sure they're approved before you start getting any hours. And just because a supervisor is approved does not necessarily mean that the hours are just going to be automatically approved. So, you're responsible for accounting for those hours. It is your responsibility to talk through every case with your supervisor. It is your responsibility to disclose to your clients that you are under supervision. So there are things that you have responsibility for and the supervisor has responsibility for. And you're going to turn in that tracker at the end, and that's going to account for all of the practice that you've earned for the full 1,000 hours. So supervision can happen in a lot of different settings, and we want this to be flexible on purpose. It doesn't have to be an internship where, you're giving up your job to go do the internship or anything like that. It can be done, while you're working a full-time job. It can be done on the weekends. So it can be done in a clinical setting. It can be done in a community or an institutional setting. There are some formal internships out there that do accept CNSs, but most of our folks are usually choosing somebody from the list. One of the things too to think about is some of the supervisors on the list are going to require you to have your own clients. Some of them might have clients they're going to provide for you. So that might be something to think about when you're deciding who you want to go with. So you can start the hours once you are matriculated into your program or you're enrolled in your program, and anytime thereafter. Like I said, don't feel like you have to get those hours during your degree program. It's absolutely okay to do the hours after you graduate. If you have no clinical experience, you're definitely going to want to start with the indirect hours so you can watch somebody and how they're doing the care. And if you're still in a degree program, you want to make sure you have those foundational courses completed. And as I mentioned, we do see better performance on the exam. If you have completed at least some of your hours, we suggest at least 500 because it is a clinical exam and is not a didactic exam. When you finish your hours, you're going to submit that tracker. On that tracker, I don't want to go too deep into it. If you open it, you'll see there's a tracker to track all of your hours. You're going to have to account for every hour that you do, and you'll have to tell us what you did. And then there's a tab for self-evaluation. You can work on that throughout the process or just do it at the end. And you're going to submit that to us, and that's going to let us know how you feel that you've done. And then your supervisor is going to also submit a report. We're going to compare the two to make sure they align, right? The things that you're saying that you did well in, that they're also saying that you did well in. So, you know, that tracker you're going to use for the full 1,000 hours, you're going to want to make sure that you save it to a cloud. Don't leave it on your computer and let it, you know, and then your computer gets lost or ruined. Make sure it's saved to some sort of, you know, cloud-based system, because you're going to track that. All of your hours is extremely important. I also always recommend that you track hours every day. Folks who don't track their hours every day tend to not record everything that they've done. Because think about if you talk to somebody on the phone or you send them an email, all of those things are going to count for hours. But if you don't have your tracker open and you're not recording them as you do them, you might forget about them. So I would recommend having that tracker open all day. You're just putting your hours in. You're tracking every day to make sure you get credit for everything that you've done. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about advocacy. I don't want to get too deep in the woods with certain states and certain rules. If you have questions about certain states, you can send us an email, but we'll do just a quick overview here. So when, like, as I mentioned before, when we're doing any kind of advocacy, we're focusing on our CNS's ability to practice, and then the exemptions for other folks who, you know, who don't necessarily have medical nutrition therapy in their scope of practice to be able to practice to their training. So we want health coaches to be able to practice to their scope of practice. We want RDs to be able to practice to their scope of practice. So when we're doing any kind of advocacy work, that's what we're focusing on. Most importantly, we're focusing on those CNSs being able to practice in a state. So as of right now, out of the 53 US jurisdictions, so it's going to be the 50 states, DC, Guam, and Puerto Rico, CNSs can practice in 48 of those states. 21 of those states are licensure or certification pathways for CNSs. So, like I said, I've got a list that we'll go through, but out of those states, so there's 21 you can be licensed in. The other states, you can practice to some level. That doesn't necessarily mean medical nutrition therapy. In some states, it might just be nutrition education. And there are a few states that they still have outdated laws that we're working on to get those fixed. But there are about 5 states that we can't practice in at all. So there's two different to sum it up, there's 2 different types of scopes. So we have exclusive scope states. So these are most of your licensed states. These are states where you have to have a license to practice medical nutrition therapy. So North Carolina, North Dakota, Maryland, Florida, Delaware. These are states where you have to have a license if you're going to practice there. If you live in one of those states and you're trying to get your hours, your supervisor has to be licensed in that state. There are also some exemptions, or sometimes they're called exceptions, that allow people to practice. So a great example of this is Georgia. We don't have a pathway to licensure in Georgia right now. We do have a bill on the books, hopefully for next year, but as of right now, we can't get licensed in Georgia. But there is an exemption in the law that allows us to practice medical nutrition therapy. So there are some states that we practice through that kind of gray area. There are also non-exclusive scope states. So these are the states that we kind of think of as voluntary. You don't have to have a license there, but you can get the license to practice medical nutrition therapy. So Alaska, Connecticut, West Virginia. These are states where you can get licensed, but you don't have to. Pennsylvania is another good example. The benefit to getting licensed in those states, if you live there, is that you can then panel with insurance if you want to be able to bill insurance in your practice. So usually if the licensure is optional, you have to get the license to be able to bill insurance. There are a few states that don't have any recognition or a formal board. So California, Colorado, Virginia. I'm in Virginia. We only have title protection. There's no license here. There's also no board here to regulate it. And there's only one state that has no rules about dietetics or nutrition, and that is Arizona. So here's just kind of a quick overview. If you are in the left-hand column, these are states that require a license to practice. If you live in one of these states, you need to make sure that your supervisor is licensed in that state. They don't have to live there, but they have to be licensed there. One of the things to point out, a lot of our folks get licensed in Maryland because it's very easy to get licensed there. So some folks, you know, takes only a couple days. So some folks will apply just to get the LDN credential, even if they don't live in Maryland. So I'm in Virginia. I got licensed in Maryland, you know, fairly easy. If you want to practice in any of these states, So this is important when you're thinking about telemedicine or telehealth. I have to follow the law of the state I'm in and the state that my client's in. So if I live in Virginia and I have no licensure, but my client is in Florida, the only way I can work with that client is if I have a license in Florida. So it's very important to think about where you're at and where you plan to practice. So, and also, you know, if you're in one of these states, the supervisor thing is a big piece. Okay. So Danielle's right. If you live in a non-licensing state, you can definitely get licensed in a different state. And if you want to practice in a different state, you can absolutely get a license in any of the states that are listed there. Maryland, again, is the easiest. Florida is pretty unique in the point that they require 200 hours of community nutrition, which if you are in Florida or you plan to get licensed in Florida, send us an email. We can connect you with our state mentor there and they can kind of explain this to you. But in that 1,000 hours, 200 of it has to be for community education, which is similar to what I've talked about, you know, doing presentations at the Senior Citizen Center or working at the WIC clinic. You're working with a specific population in the community. The other state I mentioned, North Carolina, is the most difficult state right now for us to get licensed in, only because they require the most paperwork. It's not hard to get licensed there as long as you've tracked your hours correctly. But our tracker that we use is based on their tracker on purpose, because that is one of the most difficult. If you're in, you know, the second column there, if you're in one of these states, the non-exclusive scope states, licensure there is optional, but again, gives you that opportunity to start billing with or paneling with insurances if you want to. Virginia is the only one that has title protection, so you have to be a CNS in Virginia to call yourself a nutritionist. You cannot call yourself a nutritionist until you get your CNS in the state of Virginia. You have to use a different title. And then the 5 states on the right-hand column are the states that we cannot practice. So if you are in one of those states, let us know, because it does become a little bit more difficult to get your SPE because we aren't able to practice there. So one of the benefits of getting your LDN, is showing that you're licensed. It's going to just give credibility in that state. So again, if you want to bill insurance, you're going to have the LDN or the whatever it is in that state. So some states it's an LN. Some states it's an LN, CN, right? So it just depends on what that state's licensure is. If you're not in one of the states, you don't that require the license, you don't necessarily have to get it. If you would like to bill insurance, you would want to have the license. You'll have to have the license. Let's see, Ashley, what type of license would an MD need to be a supervisor for the state of Florida? Ashley, I would send us your information. We can connect you with the state mentor there. It is very difficult in Florida to get hours approved from an MD unless they specifically work in dietetics. So the board there, when you get your license in Florida, you're required to sit in front of the board and talk to them, and they're going to ask you questions about your supervisor. And they prefer your supervisor to be someone who is a nutritionist, a CNS, or an RD. So there is some preference there. It has to be very clear that they are a nutrition professional for them to approve your hours. So if your only choice is to work with an MD, you would definitely want to check with the state. But let us, send us your information. We can connect you with the state mentor there. I did see somebody at the last Florida board meeting who they turned away because she did her hours under an MD, and the MD had no clear nutrition education. So we want to make sure that you're looking at your state laws and your state licensure process, and please reach out to us if you have questions about that. Okay, I'm almost done here. I think nope, that's it. We've got all the slides there. So with the state government website, I have information about so you should be able to look up your state website. Or I would usually just look up the name of the state and dietetics laws, and it should take you there. If you can't find it, let us know. We do have a document on the website that has the list that I showed you of what states you can be licensed in and what states you cannot be licensed in. Other questions? Anybody else? Brittany's going to put this email address in the chat so you can copy it. So Amy's asking, is an LDN an acceptable license to work in those other 5 states? It is not. No, you cannot practice medical nutrition therapy in those other 5 states. So if you are in one of those states, let us know and we can talk to you about specifically ways that you can earn your hours. But we are not, as of this point, allowed to practice medical nutrition therapy in any of those 5 states. All right. I'm going to stop sharing here if I can minimize my screen. I'll watch for any other questions here.
Amy has one more question about those 5 states. They mainly are RD, right? They only allow RDs. Yeah.
Practice, yes. So there is some room for nutrition education and coaching in those states. And so, you know, that's one way around it if you're in one of those states. But in order to practice medical nutrition therapy, in order to get a license, and in order to bill insurance in those states, you have to be a registered dietitian. Unfortunately.
Relative to those states, is there any hope of you going in to trying to change the bill? I mean, that is on your.
Yeah, so
your
we're
plan.
always, any state where we can't practice that is always the highest agenda. So we work very closely with the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics and focus on the same states as them. So they know that those are a priority for us. But because we have to have, you know, we have to have their support usually to get anywhere with a license, we, you know, work very closely with them. And so those 5 states are obviously very important to getting, you know, full ability to practice. And then we have some states where, you know, we don't necessarily have a license that we're working towards. So we just got license ability in Montana. That was one of our CNSs who lived in the state, and she did, you know, she worked, you know, grassroots efforts to get the bills changed in her state. So there is, if you're in one of those 5 states and you're interested in advocacy work, let me know, because there's work that we can do, you know, in your state to try and help, you know, get that changed as quickly as possible.
Good.
Yeah.
Right.
Catherine has a question about undergraduate degree. Catherine, the 1,000 hours have to be started after a graduate degree.
Correct. Yeah.
Or while you're in a graduate degree.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. I will turn it back over to you all, then. I think we got all the questions.
Perfect. That was wonderful. Patricia, do you want to take some time and talk about the courses at the school? And then we'll turn it over to Catherine for applying.
Sure. I mean, one of the things that I did see come through in one of the chats, someone had talked about the integrative health science, the master's in integrative health science. The courses that have been approved for the CNS is from the holistic nutrition, masters of holistic nutrition. So I just wanted to clarify that. It doesn't mean that you don't have the right courses to that the CNS requires, or the BCNS requires for the course requirements, but the one that has been approved has been the Masters of Holistic Nutrition. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think what we should do, Janet, is, because we just have 2 minutes, is probably just to have Troy or Catherine just wrap it up and talk about the final slides that they had.
Sure. I will go ahead and do that. Troy had to hop to another meeting just now, so I will just run through really quickly a few of his slides about how to apply and enroll. So to apply, we've got the following steps. You can complete our online application. This will be linked. We'll share the slides and the recording of all this in the email out to everyone who registered afterwards. So this will all be linked. And then you'll want to order your official transcripts. This link will take you to our website, walking you through the steps for that. And then you'll need your government issued photo ID, There will be an interview with the dean of the department, review and approval by the admissions committee, and then upon acceptance, we will help you build your academic plan and help you through the steps to secure your funding. And then there's also, to finalize your enrollment, new student orientation, and then you start your classes. And this is something that our admissions advisors can help walk you through all of this step by step, and personalize it towards your program. So the next time to enroll would be our upcoming fall 2025 semester, and the application deadline is actually really soon. It's this Friday. So if you are looking to enroll for fall, you'll want to get everything together. You may need to contact one of our admissions advisors this week if you have questions. So application deadline, July 25th, this Friday. Registration deadline is August 7th. And then classes for fall begin September 2nd, and that is for the 15-week fall semester. You can also reach out to one of our admissions advisors. They'd be happy to help you, walk you through everything you need to know, answer any questions. If you still have questions about this presentation, you can also reach out to one of them as well. We'll include all their contact info in the follow-up email, or you can also visit them, contact them through our website under the admissions tab. And so, yeah, I think just in the interest of time, yeah, we're right after 2 o'clock, so perfect. And I think we'll just wrap everything up here. If you do have further questions, again, you can, we'll have contact information in that follow-up email, and feel free to send anything there. And just another huge thank you to Amy Smith for all your wisdom and insight. It was very informative. Thank you to Patricia and Janet as well, and Troy as well. And I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.